Hello there.
there.
Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. This is episode 31. Welcome back to Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Nessa.
Well, that cat's out of the bag now.
Sorry.
No, we're good. We're all good. We have Nessa, who is a writer at Project Stardust, which we talked with Magdal before, who is your founder and leader. And how do you describe? Anyway, so we're very excited to have her on. A quick note about this episode that's going to be a little bit weird. We recorded episode 32 before we recorded this episode, due to scheduling conflicts, so we may reference a couple of things that you have no idea why we're referencing it. It's because we recorded an episode a week ago that about a couple of things that isn't coming out until the week after this, so that's going to be interesting. First, we want to get into, we like to know a little bit about our guests before we get into it. But so, Nessa, tell us a little bit about how you got into Star Wars and all of that kind of stuff.
So, Star Wars has been around in my life for quite a while. I actually went to go see The Phantom Menace when it was in theaters, and that immediately started my love for Padme Amidala. I will say that Star Wars kind of was, it's an undercurrent fandom of mine. Whether I was actively in it or not, it's always been in my life. So it's a happy place.
It's both of our happy places too. So one more question, which is, how did you get to be a writer at Project Stardust, and what do you do there? What have you done so far there?
Yeah, so Project Stardust was definitely one of those impulse decisions that turned out beautifully. Meg and I are both in Galactic Fempire on Facebook. And she happened to put this post out there that she was looking into starting this website that was going to be female and femme kind of voices and promotions, and just refocusing the discussion around Star Wars to make sure that voices that aren't normally heard get the chance to speak. And I remember looking at my wife and I was like, I think I might do this. And she was like, yeah, why not? See what happens. And it just we got into this really awesome Facebook Messenger chat, and then it became a Slack, and I was like, oh my God, this is real. This is actually happening. So now what I do is I do content creation and I do editing. Most of what I've done so far is editing. I don't know if you guys have read anything on the website yet. So I've edited a couple of articles, the one about Finn that was put out, and the one about Anakin and Rey and the differences between their chosen ones. And then I'm actually currently writing an article about LGBTQIA plus representation and why it's important in the Star Wars universe.
I've seen The Mandalorian. I've heard that this.
He hasn't seen The Mandalorian this week.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Nessa and I are going to talk about it. We're talking about Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian, called The Tragedy. And let me tell you something. I've been saying a lot that the odd numbers of the episodes of The Mandalorian have been incredible, and the even numbered one have been only okay. And this broke my streak.
I was gonna say,
even numbered episode, and it kicked ass.
It was so good. I remember sitting there watching it, and I was like, okay, this just literally keeps getting better and better. And usually, I will say Mandalorian episodes, they build to a moment. So, you have a reveal or a character development moment. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but it's you come to a
You get
point,
into it after a while. It gets predictable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But this one was hit after hit after hit after hit. And I loved it. I was having so much fun.
So let me explain something. I hated Boba Fett. I had a vitriol for Boba Fett because I hate characters who just stand there and look cool and don't do anything.
You're not alone.
But
I couldn't get it. Could not wrap my mind around it.
But man, Tamara Morrison in this episode, and I this is another thing. I loved Jango Fett. I love Jango, but I always hated Boba. This episode genuinely, and I've heard this from so many other Star Wars fans, made me love Boba Fett.
Yeah. I would in that moment, I can't even pinpoint the exact moment. It may be the first time that he swung on a stormtrooper and just shattered their helmet, I was like, oh, this is the guy that everybody likes.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it was, yeah, I just gotta say, Boba was, the moment I saw, first of all, I should never make predictions about The Mandalorian again, because the first thing I said after The Jedi was, oh, they're not gonna get to Tython until the end of the season. And then they instantly just land on Tython. I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And then we see the Slave 1 flying overhead. And there had been some rumors about the Slave 1 in Season 2. I'm like, nah, no, it's not going to be in Season 2. And then you see it, and I'm like, that's the Slave 1.
Yeah, you
That's
have that
Boba
moment
Fett.
where you're like, that's something that I've seen, or like we've seen hints of since, like decades.
Yeah.
And here it is actually like cinematically in motion, and you get to see how that thing lands, which is so strange.
Yeah.
It's such a weird little ship.
It's a strange ship. I think the thing that most Star Wars fans want, and I feel like we're gonna get it, is the seismic charge. Everyone just foams at the mouth of that seismic charge. I feel like there's no way we're not gonna get it now. So the big 2 points of the episode are the baby gets captured, which I saw coming 2 miles away, and the Razor Crest gets destroyed, which I saw coming nowhere.
Right?
Yeah,
I think I actually like gasped out loud when it happened.
I was like, I just saw it. I'm like, that totally just happened. It was a very, what I loved about the tragedy was that even though the name, I hate the name, I think it could have gotten a much better episode name. It felt very Empire Strikes Back to me. It felt like, yep, this is the time where Gideon's been waiting for 13 episodes. This is the time where he's gonna come and he's gonna strike back hard, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. Like he saw his moment and he took it, and I think that's why I like him so much, because he carries the same kind of gravitas to me that Thrawn does, in that like he has a plan. No matter how much it seems like that plan is not going his way, it will work.
I'm reluctant to put him on the same level as Thrawn, because I
definitely not
Thrawn.
the same level as Thrawn, but like that kind of thread.
And then Grogu was bashing those stormtroopers together. I'm worried about him.
Yeah, that is definitely really concerning. And I think a friend of mine mentioned something that really kind of struck me about this episode, is that in terms of action, Grogu and Din don't necessarily do a lot. But every moment we see with them is massive character development.
Though,
like,
actually, who knows?
Significant.
Maybe those stormtroopers are played by terrible human beings. The last person needed a dark side force power to was played by a terrible human being. Maybe these ones are.
Exactly.
Maybe Yoda has a prophetic power.
Grogu's just letting us know.
These are terrible, terrible people. It was a really great episode, and I cannot wait.
It was.
I'm
really glad.
Even though they clearly set up that next episode with Mayfeld. I'm not looking forward to that. Of all
the people for them to bring back, like, I'm wondering
that,
because I know
episode, The Prisoner, is gonna remain my least favorite episode of The Mandalorian until they do something worse, which I don't think they're gonna do anytime soon.
Which I hope will never happen.
Yeah.
So I'm actually a really big fan of that episode, and I can't even tell you why. Like, really, it may just be because I really love Twi'leks. Like, I was so excited to see live action ones. That may honestly be it. Shion may be carrying that episode alone for me.
Yeah. They love bringing back characters from the first season, and I think that's going to be a theme.
I think so too, absolutely. Like its groundwork is more of what the first season was, which a lot of shows don't always manage to pull off in terms of like keeping groundwork seasons interesting.
Yeah.
But they did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're really getting into it.
One final question before we call Jacob back. So that Tython call, I mean, Grogu was out of it before the Dark Troopers. By the way, we have Dark Troopers from a 1990s video game now in The Mandalorian.
My wife has been playing that game. And I remember, like, I was like, I don't know what these are. And she goes, I do.
The funny thing is, I have that game, or one of those games. I played it for about a half an hour, and I hated it so much because of the boring and outdated gameplay that I kind of just quit.
I get the same way about video games. If the gameplay can't catch me, I can't do it. I can't force my way through it.
Anyway,
sorry, Mass Effect 1, I'll never play you again.
Oof. My question to you is, so he was out of that call. Yeah. Do you think someone's going to answer that call? And if you do, which I do, who's going to answer that call?
Okay, I do think someone is, 100%. And I have 3 favorites for who I think will answer, and who I would love to have answer. The one I think is going to... Oh, go ahead.
One one's going to be Luke, the other one's going to be Ezra, the third one's going to be... I have no idea.
Cal Kestis.
If he's alive.
If he's alive. But those are like my 3. I feel like Luke is the most obvious.
Yeah.
And then with them, obviously name-dropping Thrawn, Ezra
actually, I think
bumps
Ezra
pretty
is the
high
most
up.
obvious because of the Thrawn thing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I could definitely see Ezra being the most obvious one. If they really want to take us for a shocker and bring in Cal, I would probably cry. He already has an actor.
Yeah.
So...
Cameron Monaghan looks so much like Cal. My thing is, I don't like any of the 3 opposites. I think I like Luke the best. But my thing is, like, I was thinking, oh, what if they just bring in a new Jedi? And then I'm like, yeah, that would necessitate another Jedi surviving Order 66, which I don't want. Because if they keep making Jedi survive Order 66, then Order 66 is no longer going to be so impactful anymore.
Yeah, especially if it's, like, a Jedi that survived that maintains being a Jedi.
Yeah.
Like, obviously we have Kanan's story, where... he survived, but he doesn't really consider himself a Jedi for a while, so... But I don't think a new Jedi would be good.
Sure. But I also don't want no one to answer it. It's a dilemma.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want it to be like, oh, cool, they did this, and then nothing comes of it.
Yeah. So we'll just have to wait and see for that. Let's get to the Clone Wars episodes. This week we listened to I almost said Bombad Jedi, which is next week, which we recorded last week. Rookie's Downfall of a Droid and Duel of the Droids. Without any further ado, let's get into this thing. First there's Rookies. And let's just get into our what was it? Fortune
cookie? Yeah.
Fortune
the
cookie.
Fortune cookie this week is the best, or I guess not this week, for this episode, my bad. The best confidence builder is experience. You guys have any thoughts about that? I have some thoughts, but if anyone else wants to go first, I might be a while.
I thought it was a bit of a weak fortune cookie myself. I think there could have been better themes, like, I don't know, like family comes first or something, like something in the vein of family comes first, or, I don't know, it didn't feel like that was what the episode was covering exactly.
I feel like they were trying to kind of hearken to what Rex had said to Ahsoka before, like if I experience, but it didn't quite reach that.
Yeah, I thought of the same thing. I think that I think maybe where it fell short was picking the word confidence. I think they were headed in the right direction, but the best confidence builders experience doesn't really fully encapsulate what was happening, because I think what was happening was also they're gaining experience. I think this fortune cookie, it may not be the best, but I thought it was interesting. And it does kind of encapsulate the episode, even though I think it could have been better. You have this fresh batch of clones. They're not particularly promising. They kind of barely made it through training, as we've
rookies,
seen.
But
yeah, they're rookies, and then they're thrown into one of the most horrific and difficult situations in the entire series. I think it's kind of ironic that they were placed on a backwater world, because they end up being the only thing standing between the Republic and pretty much irreversible defeat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it has some merit, but I love this episode. So
I'm a huge fan too. I'd also like to announce that D. Bradley Baker has just been sent to the hospital because from carrying this entire episode on his back.
I got worried for a second.
I literally had a moment of like, oh, what?
No.
I'm sitting at my computer and I'm like, new tab.
No. I'm joking. Yeah, but seriously though, he does the entire episode Other than Matt
Entire
Lanter
episode.
and James Arnold Taylor as Anakin and Obi-Wan for a minute, this entire episode is him, which is incredible if you think about it.
It really is. I was talking to a friend of mine about this, I think literally earlier today, about how he does entire episodes by himself. Like, the episode with Slick is all clones. Kamino, all clones. And it's like, how did you just sit? I've seen his little build that he has for recording, and it's this really adorable little closet. I'm like, do you just sit in this closet and talk to yourself for hours?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know. Yeah, it is crazy. I remember reading at one point. He even started doing multiple different clones' voices in one take. I'm not sure. I would assume that this is before that, just because it's pretty early in the series. But either way, amazing job by him. Yeah, props to D. Bradley
Truly,
Baker.
Yeah.
He manages to make them all sound so unique, even while having the exact same voice.
Also, we should really talk about his almost Shakespearean performance as Frog Lady a couple weeks back.
That was D. Bradley Baker?
Yep.
No way. No kidding. Wow.
Okay.
I had no idea. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, it's revealed this episode that the reason that they're on this base and this base is so important is because it's on the planet of Rishi, just outside the Rishi maze, which is also where Kamino is, and they're trying to defend that area from separatists who, obviously, if they get into Kamino and destroy the cloning facilities, then they basically win the war.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that they put this squad there, knowing the Domino Squad episode, you're kind of like, why did they put these kids here?
Yeah, they took multiple tries to get past that, the course, which doesn't make sense anyway. Again, for reasons that doesn't make sense, listen to our episode like a month ago. If you're training them using the separatist prison that you only ever go to once, maybe it's not the best training course. But anyway, they're putting a bunch of rookies again, but on the moon protecting the cloning facilities.
Yeah, I think in response to Nessa, what you said about how did this happen, I thought of a couple explanations. One, maybe this is an example of, maybe this is trying to tell us this is how thinly stretched the Republic truly is at this moment in time, that they need to have, or they can't afford to have any seasoned clones not directly in combat, even if it's not to defend arguably one of the most important posts in the entire war effort. Or what if this is them trying to tell us of the hubris problem that the Republic has? What if this is another facet of that? Oh my gosh! Eli's gonna comment about I always talk about the Jedi losing their way, because I think it's I think it's a recurring theme. I keep noticing it.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
But we see Admiral Yularen, I think it is, or Admiral Yularen, Yularen, Admiral Yularen and Obi-Wan, and they're talking, and Obi-Wan just says, "We've lost contact with Rex and Cody," and then Yularen says, "Should we contact them?" And he says he's kind of dismissive, he's not too worried, and he says, he's like, "No, the beacon's still up. Like they'll contact us if they're in trouble." Well, clearly, they can't contact you if they're in trouble, Obi-Wan, and the esteemed Admiral here. So I just think maybe it's a bit of complacency on the Republic's part of saying, "Oh well, it's just a backwater posting," which I mean seems a little far-fetched given that it's impressed upon us very early on how important this is. But that was just something that I connected to, was the hubris and the feeling of complacency that we see from Yularen. We see it from Obi-Wan, and we see it from some of the clones. We see Heavy saying, There's nothing out here but rocks. Oh no, a meteor shower. I'm so scared. And when he should be on guard instead of arm wrestling other clones.
Yeah, they make a point of it being, this. The clones themselves say it's like the most boring station, most boring outpost. They're annoyed about being there. But like you said, it's very clear that this is super important, because I kind of get the impression that it's the only outpost that exists in the Rishi maze.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like,
the only thing between the Separatists and Kamino is this planet.
Yeah. So it's a very weird disconnect, and I think like what you said about the clones sharing that sort of complacency, they're also learning from the Jedi, because like we have to consider the shortness of their life experience. Everything prior to this has been training that happens in Kamino. So for Domino Squad, this is their first time not being on Kamino itself.
Are kind of, if the Jedi and their superiors are behaving in this kind of nonchalant manner, why should we expect them to do anything different?
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Anyway, so we get on to the Separatists are invading. They're coming. They hide in a meteor shower, which is crazy. And then we get a clone taken out by a commando droid, a clone sentry. Jacob, I don't know if you caught the number of the clone sentry.
I did catch the number, actually. I think you were pretty pleased, I imagine.
I really was. It's the best. CT327, where are you, CT327? It's a thing now, guys. It's 327 is one of my favorite low-hanging fruits of any Star Wars anything, and we got it again. Speaking of low-hanging fruits, once the clones realize what's up, Jacob, how did they escape?
They escape through an air duct. This is something that, I'm not going to say it upsets me, but it peeves me.
This is from episode 32.
It's a good word for it.
This is from episode 32 we recorded last week. We talked about the 3 tropes of Star Wars. We see all 3 in this episode.
What are the other 2 that you're referring to?
Dressing up as the enemy, and the ship gets blown up.
Of course.
All 3 in this episode.
Of course.
Yeah.
And of course, not fast traveling, but just very conveniently placed wide air ducts that you can easily travel through, that the doors aren't locked, or
that's the third.
They can easily be removed. You don't have to do anything special. I think Star Wars television has a real problem with these air ducts. We see it so much in Rebels.
Yep.
And I'm really realizing now on this rewatch. Mando, wait, where does it show up in Mando? Am I forgetting something?
I remember last time the event in Mando. I'm
blanking.
In the final episode of season 1, they have to escape that building, and Kara blasts the vent.
Yeah. Why do architects in Star Wars love to leave, just like they love their giant open giant chasms just going infinitely downwards, plunging into the abyss? Why do they love to have giant air ducts?
Am I sensing a 4th trope?
Perhaps, I don't know.
We got some really cool references in this episode. There's an "everything is fine here" reference from A New Hope. There's "fully operational" from Return of the Jedi. There's references to Mimban.
Oh, the Mimban
Imperial
reference.
Conquest.
One thing that I noticed about this episode that I really liked was I thought the visuals of it, while certainly not the most unique or exciting that we've seen in the Clone Wars, I think that's okay, because I think the extremely stark, bleak nature of the barren moon and the featureless hallways, pretty much featureless except for a couple of posters. I think it really conveys that, like, this is or makes it feel like it's just a giant crucible for the clones, and this is just like it makes it feel like a giant battle arena almost, which to me it heightened the sense of the clones, kind of their really brutal and tragic trial by fire.
One of the things I noticed about this episode also is how bleak it is. This episode is ridiculously bleak. I mean, out of the 5 of Domino Squad, 3. No, wait. Why did I say 3? 2.
I think maybe we were thinking of this. Maybe you're thinking of the sergeant.
No, 2 out of Domino Squad make it out of this episode alive.
Oh gosh.
Cut Up, Droid Bait dies, I think, in the hallway. Cut Up gets eaten by that slug.
Eel.
There we go. That's the word I was looking for. And Heavy, we'll get to Heavy, but Heavy, oh man.
I think in particular, like, Cut Up's death scene really kind of drives home how much the clones are disassociated from their own existence. Because, like, they're upset, but they just walk away from it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really kind of shows you how little the clones have been trained to devalue themselves as much as... And that's another thing, kind of like how the clones are learning from the Jedi. Everyone else is also learning from this behavior of the clones. If the clones don't value themselves, why should they value the clone?
Yeah. There's also...
why should they value themselves?
Yeah, exactly.
There's also a feeling of... the clones in this case kind of are the audience in this case. I mean, not us, because we're watching chronological order, but it's important to note that this episode came out before Clone Cadets. It would be another 2 seasons before Clone Cadets came out. So we didn't know why Cut Up, Droid Bit, and Heavy were so important. When Cut Up died, I mean, I'm not sure if I viewed this before Clone Cadets, but maybe. When Cut Up dies, the audience goes, yeah, okay. Just like the clones go, yeah, okay. It's only after seeing Clone Cadets that we realize the origins of Cut Up's name and all of that kind of stuff. And
it's a really interesting way to show the clones' position, like, in the universe, in the military, even among themselves.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot more emotion shown when the sergeant dies.
Yeah.
Than even when Cut Up dies. Even though Cut Up dies in a much more traumatizing way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, in my mind, I think that this even, kind of continuing this theme of the clones losing their, or not really having, I think, a sense of humanity and kind of being, witnessing the Jedi, a lot of the Jedi treating them as expendable and being conditioned to, just leave people behind on the battlefield. The mission comes first. The mission at all costs, that kind of thing. I think I would have loved to seen maybe what if Order 66 didn't have the computer chips in the clones' brains? What if it didn't have what are they called?
Inhibitor chips?
Yeah, what if there weren't the inhibitor chips? I think that you could have made a much, I'm not going to say more impactful, but I think you could have made an equally impactful story by saying there were no inhibitor chips. The clones just did this because that's the place that they were in, and that's where they were taken by their life of being conditioned.
So it was a little bit of revenge.
By being conditioned not to have compassion. Yeah, and not to question. And by witnessing the Jedi, who are their supposed leaders, and I mean they keep talking in this episode. Even I think this fits great with it. They keep talking about, man, I wish this is so much harder without a Jedi. If only a Jedi were here, they could save us. We could
use a Jedi about now. I wrote in my notes, Cody would be great on In a Galaxy.
Yeah. What if the Jedi? I mean, and then they see the Jedi as kind of treating them as expendable in most cases. I think Plo Koon, for example, is a good exception to that rule that we see. But I think that would have been very interesting, and it would kind of be it would be sort of a moment of you reap what you sow for the Jedi and the Republic politicians.
I always kind of joke that Plo Koon is probably like yelled at every now and then by the Council for treating his clones like his children.
Yeah.
Like that he's
about
more
as much as Anakin or even Yoda.
Yeah.
Plo Koon's clone commander that he works with, Commander Wolf.
He's one of my favorites. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, of course. Wolf is awesome. Wolf is amazing. We see Wolf in Rebels. He's one of the 3 clones we know of, along with Rex and Gregor, who defected or decided not to participate in Order 66 for whatever reason. And I just think that is that kind of shows.
That actually.
Pardon?
I don't remember where exactly it comes from, and it may actually be legends now. But Wolf, to the best of my knowledge, like recognized that something off was happening, and instead of firing on Plo Koon, he actually drove his own ship into the ground.
And he survived that? So,
yeah.
Whoops, I shouldn't say that because he survived that is the story of Star Wars in the last 5 years.
I mean, I think that just makes my
yeah.
I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I think that fits. I
it
think
validates your theory.
Yeah, that is why my theory of there wouldn't need to be. Yeah, I feel validated by realizing that we have Anakin who treats his clones with more, even though he leads them into a lot of danger. He pretty much treats them with the most compassion, right up there with Plo Koon. And then we end up seeing Rex and Wolf kind of being the ones to break out of, or to try and break out of Order 66.
Yeah.
One thing I do have to mention is Gregor is the other one who obviously is there in Rebels. He's actually part of the 212.
He is?
Yeah. So he is.
I did not know. That's interesting. But
yeah,
then that doesn't explain
commando.
why Cody, if inhibitor chips don't exist, it would explain Rex and Wolf.
My thing with Cody, I love Cody. Love Cody. Cody is probably my number 2, in terms of clones. And I always kind of put that up to the training he has, because I know that clone commanders like him, I believe he's a martial commander at that, they're trained very differently. So they undergo like a completely separate kind of like training regimen, and I feel like with Cody, he almost has even less humanity than the average clone. I know way too much about clones.
You know what? We're glad to have a clone expert, because neither of us I would say, are crazy clone experts. Jacob is more into the vehicles, and I am more into the Jedi Sith stuff, so...
We've got a great trifecta here, then.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
You just made me realize when you brought up Gregor, too. Gregor is another one of these clones that is an odd one out. He has this amazing journey of humanization and self-discovery in a sunny day in the void, when he's
when
trekking
we get to
through the desert.
2020, December of 2021.
Oh gosh.
I'm half joking, but I'm half being completely serious.
He has his humanity affirmed by this experience, and this gives him more of a sense of compassion and individuality than the average clone.
Let's talk about
Not to mention the fact that he's
Last Stand. One of the best lines in, I think, any of these 3 episodes. Do we take prisoners? I don't. Boom.
Oh.
That's a like,
Touch.
It destroys me emotionally. It's one of those Clone Wars deaths that absolutely tears me apart. But like, wow, what a great exit.
Can I harken to like another clone that has a very similar like end in a future episode?
Which one are we going with?
Hardcase in the Umbara arc.
Jacob's a huge fan of Umbara, so...
I love Hardcase. I love the Umbara arc.
Yes! Oh my god, it's my favorite arc.
I know this is very far in the future, but I want to extend an invitation if you want to come back.
Okay, let's do this.
Please. Yes.
That would be so much fun.
Yes.
Yep, I'm getting our spreadsheet and I'm gonna mark you down for that. You guys are gonna be fanning all
favorite.
You guys are gonna be fanboying and girling all over that arc. I'm not super into that arc.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I like it. It's good, but I can't stand Ponkrell.
Me either.
Ugh,
but he's one of those characters that we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We're already doing this. I love to hate him, and I love what he reveals about the dynamics between clones and Jedi.
Yeah, I love the way so like the clones, a lot of them are so quick to go along with the way he treats them, and I think that kind of that says a lot about the clones.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say that this episode is my favorite of the 3. This might be my favorite episode of all of the episodes we've covered so far. Maybe Ambush, but I think it's this one.
Yeah, I love this episode. Yeah. I do like that there is this like tiny recurring theme of Rex always getting an eye shot, like whenever he shoots something in the head with the droid that he shoots that's pretending to be a clone with the eel. He always hits it directly in the eye.
I never
did
even
not
noticed
notice
that before.
one, but yeah.
So my wife
You're
and
so
I
right.
are we're both huge clone nerds. Rex is her favorite clone.
Probably mine
Cody
too,
is my favorite.
honestly. Yeah.
Or one of my favorites, yeah. So she always picks up things about Rex, and I always pick up things about Cody. But that one is one she always, like, every time we watch the episode, she's like, there it is. I'm like, okay, honey.
Nailed it. I shot. Yeah.
Nailed it.
Absolutely. When the initial droid invasion happened, and you saw the commando droids. When we saw the commando droids storming the outpost, I loved the role. It felt like a role reversal, where all of a sudden the clones are the ones who are. You have these fresh clones, fresh out of Camino. They're the ones who are being outclassed. They're the ones who feel outmatched, and they feel like the commando droids are just faster and better and more competent. And I really thought that was an interesting. That was just an interesting dynamic to me, because so often we see, the battle droids are just kind of lost, and the clones are.
And now
they're making them look like
the ones impersonating them.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
It makes me think of the episode of the Bad Batch arc where there's that really great scene of all of the clones like pouring out of the tree line and heading for that communications tower.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate, actually. I'm just thinking, because we have Rookies, which is beautiful episode, great episode, one of my favorites of this season. And then we have Downfall of a Droid, which is my least favorite episode I've watched so far.
So I guess we're moving on
Downfall
to
of a Droid.
Downfall of a
This was an episode.
This was a very interesting episode.
Yeah.
I'll say that. We start off with the fortune cookies.
Trust in your friends, and they'll have reason to trust in you.
What did you guys think of this fortune cookie?
I feel like, so my issue with this arc is that I feel like there's this accidental effort of teaching Anakin to not trust anybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, what they do, they prove him right in his own kind of, like, and for lack of paranoia, that he doesn't trust new things. He doesn't trust new people, including new droids. And it's like, okay, so we're going to make sure that this droid drives that home.
Yeah. It does feel like there's this thing that, I remember there was an interview or something with Mark Hamill. They were talking about BB-8, and he was like, well, harkening back to R2-D2, R2-D2 is really the hero of Star Wars. And he goes on this, 15-second long spiel about how R2 was the real hero, and he did more for the Rebel Alliance than Luke, Han, or Leia ever did. I feel like this arc was just a 40-minute stretching of that.
Yeah.
It was like,
Definitely
we get it,
emphasizing the
R2's
point.
good.
He is a good droid, we know.
Yeah.
I think, Nessa, something you just said that finally made everything click for me was when you said he keeps getting, Anakin kind of gets, it feels like Anakin gets accidentally proven right over and over in the Clone Wars, because he sees things from the perspective of like a soldier or a warrior, and that brings him into conflict with the Jedi, right? But instead of learning to be more peaceful, to maybe cooperate a little more, maybe heed the wisdom of the Jedi Council a little more, the Jedi Council keeps letting him off easy because he's their star player. He's the one who's going to get the job done.
He's a pivotal piece, not only for the war, but for the Jedi. In that, without Anakin, obviously the war would be much more difficult. And then without Anakin, the Jedi might actually lose out on some of their own validity, I guess, for lack of a better word. They lean on him a lot. And I'm actually, for the first time, I'm just watching Clone Wars, I think is the difference.
That was a trip.
Oh, it's so good.
That was a trip.
Yeah, and I'm only a little bit into it, but to just have them kind of hand wave his trials into knighthood, I was like, wait. Of any potential Jedi Knights, I think Anakin is the one who needs those trials the most.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they just kind of let it slide. And the Clone Wars, throughout all of the events of the war, he just keeps having things brushed aside. And when he does get in trouble, it's only briefly. And then Palpatine is immediately there to make him feel better about it, usually.
Yeah, probably. So let's get to our 3 S6. The single part of this arc that I don't understand. How did that work? Like, I have these famous logistical problems, but seriously, how did Grievous successfully get an astromech droid into the Republic to sabotage everything? And apparently Obi-Wan was the one who assigned it to Anakin. How did nobody notice?
There's multiple opportunities for somebody to be like, you know what, this droid is defective. And I feel like a little bit of that, because I will admit these are some of my least favorite episodes. So
mine too.
Before this, I actually was actually watching them again because I've only seen them once. There's this whole bit where Obi-Wan chides Anakin about attachment for being attached to R2. R2 units are a dime a dozen, which is a whole other tiny issue for me. Where do they get dimes?
Yeah, I was. And where is Hell in the last episode?
Right.
Where is Hell? He's just like, we have a clone say, "What the hell? Where's Hell?"
Wait, no. There's a where is it? It's a Hanto line. Then I'll see you in hell. So not the first time. This is the stuff we do on In a Galaxy. You'll fit right in.
I love it. But there's this bit where Anakin again gets chided for being attached to R2, but at the same time we see Ahsoka being attached to R3 by being like, he's doing his best, everything will be fine, we'll just let him keep trying. Like, you can see her learning that exact same attachment.
Whoops.
And I feel like that just
yeah. It's funny because the more incompetent R3 seems, and we get the more competent R2 does seem.
He gets stuff
done. He sabotages the ship. I was trying to make another sabotage montage like I did for our episode a couple weeks ago. I could not get the clip, so I can't do it. But know if I could do it, an unlisted video of 1 minute of R2 sabotaging Ganak's ship to the BC Boys song would have gone up around this time.
Yes. But how poorly must other R3 units behave if nobody looked twice at him, not even being able to open a door?
Yeah. I also love the fact, now that I think about it, R3 is technically the newer model. And yet R2 is 10 times better.
Weren't R3 units R2 units that were specifically upgraded and made for military use in the Clone Wars? So wouldn't they be actually extra good at their job, not extra bad at their job?
They should.
Why did nobody think twice about this?
It bugs me so much, especially Anakin. I mean, Anakin is so particular about technology.
Yeah.
Let alone, his own personal issues with there being a different droid. But, he's a mechanic at heart. And he's like, yeah, this is really annoying and I don't want this droid anymore. But at no point does he be like, what is wrong with this thing?
Yeah. I want to point out before we proceed on to low-hanging fruit, some memes specifically. Jacob, did you catch the Clone Wars meme from this episode? Well, I guess I'm in charge now.
Oh yeah, I love that.
That's
one.
A great meme.
I could gush for hours about how I think the battle droids make the Clone Wars great.
Grievous tells a battle droid, if we attack from above, they will have the advantage. And Grievous, this is why the Separatists keep failing. That if you attack from above, you will have the advantage. It's called having the high ground.
Have the high ground.
Personally, I absolutely loved the opening scene on Bothui. I thought the battle was incredible, but I thought that it kind of shows the best and worst of Anakin. I think that he's, at some point, you see he's a brilliant leader and a brilliant skilled fighter with the whole asteroid maneuver.
Which I got wrong in our trivia match, and I'll never forget.
Oof. Never again.
Hey, Movie Trivia Schmodown, please hire me anyway.
We see him as he's like a brilliant. He's brilliant, and yet his attachments are also constantly putting him, the people. Yeah, they're undermining him, and not only that, they're putting the people around him in mortal danger. He literally risks the entire Republic pretty much by refusing to wipe R2-D2 and then taking him into the heart of the action over and over and over again.
Exactly. And I think it says a lot that Ahsoka knows. So this is, again, that kind of like, I mean, she even says to Obi-Wan, like, it's been really beneficial for him to have all these old battle tactics. So it's clear that she knows that Anakin is intentionally not wiping R2's memory. So it's just this, like, it's again that thread of learning from the people around you, which I feel kind of shows. The image I have coming to my mind is, this is really strange, but like Samson from the Bible pulling down the pillars. So like Anakin is there at the center, and all these threads he's holding, like when he falls, he could pull it all down.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
He is very much
that's a really
linchpin
great
of this
metaphor.
war.
When Anakin is brought back from like the very beginning during the battle, his ship gets damaged, all of that. When he wakes up in the med bay, first of all, what is the color wash in that scene? It's so white. Like, it's all washed out. But on top of that, there is a like a stim bolt, I think is what they called it. And it's supposed to be for medical purposes, but they put it on his prosthetic arm.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
Wait, is his prosthetic arm is covered in that scene, right?
Yeah, so it's on the glove.
Wait, what?
Maybe maybe that's a mistake. Wow,
That's hilarious.
that's crazy. Oh my gosh,
It
who would have
bugs
thought?
me every time.
I think most people would agree with me in saying that this episode, the animation, was pretty rough, but
It's season
there
1.
may be an explanation. There may be an explanation for that, which was this episode was actually the second ever Clone Wars episode produced, because the first episode was rolled into the movie. So I think that can explain why the animation is kind of takes a dive
Also,
from
why
the
the
episodes
story
we have
kind
before
of
and
takes
after.
a dive too. Because
I
if
think-
it's produced alongside the movie already has a story.
In the original production, this arc was actually going to be earlier chronologically, and the idea was that Ahsoka's reckless flying maneuver that we see would make Anakin doubt her ability to fly, and that is why she would be his Y-wing gunner in the Shadow of the Malevolence episode.
Oh.
Also, there's a tactical screen. Fun trivia right here. There's a tactical screen where in Arabesh we can see the text ATTE rules with a 3 instead of an E and a Z, but we see the same text on the detonator screen in Rookies. Also in Arabesh on the screen we can see "Take that, Grievous." I thought that was pretty funny.
Awesome.
For more fun trivia, sorry, did I say fun? I meant head bashing. For more head bashing trivia, check out Force Toast to Star Wars Happy Hour episode 50. I think you'll enjoy it. Anyway, I'm not saying anything about what I sent into them. I'm just saying they're going to be tortured next episode. And it's going to be fun.
Please tell me it's not Ochi of Bestoon related.
No, it isn't. It's just the hardest trivia I've ever written. Let's get on to Duel of the Droids finally, right, Jacob?
Finally,
okay.
yeah.
I don't actually really have too much to say about this episode. It's great because it's not Downfall of the Droids, I think.
Yeah.
It's not great, but like it's much better.
It's already higher up on the list.
Yeah. Here's something that's 3 of 3. In all 3 episodes, somebody says I have a bad feeling about this.
The fortune cookie for this episode is you hold on to your friends by keeping your heart a little softer than your head. I think that it doesn't quite have a ring to it, but I think it makes sense. Anakin saves R2 he follows his heart to try and find R2 rather than sticking with the squad and destroying the station. However, this also means that he leaves a lot of clones to get killed by Grievous, and also he leaves his apprentice Ahsoka in mortal peril when she has to face Grievous alone. So maybe Anakin's heart is a little biased towards R2-D2.
Yeah.
But I think this moral kind of shows how blatantly, with the use of the word heart, how blatantly Anakin constantly goes against the Jedi Code, how he constantly tries to protect his attachments, and how he clearly has these attachments for all to see. And I think it's kind of astounding when you consider episodes like these and you consider Ahsoka's seeing it, Rex is seeing it, the clones are seeing it. It's kind of astounding that no one checks in on him sooner and tries to figure out, hey, what's going on? Something's not right here.
Actually, that was my
Right.
first thought. I'm like, okay, it's a little on the nose. Yeah. Let's see.
Can I mention real quick that I almost hate my brain for noticing this, but do y'all remember the thing with the blue and white, gold and black dress?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Isn't that R2 and Goldie?
Oh my gosh.
No, wait,
What?
it was different colors.
Wait a second.
It was
Because
Wait,
there's
white and
one
gold
scene.
and blue and
No,
black.
he's black and gold.
No, it was white and gold and black and blue.
Oh,
Still
okay.
shockingly
But
close.
There's one scene, I think it's right before they make Rex like carry
Maybe it wasn't a
Goldie
dress
down
all
to the
along.
planet.
Maybe it was an astromech droid.
But like they're standing in this like darkened kind of hangar, and I had a moment where I looked at my screen and I was like, oh, that's R2, and I was like, wait, no, that's Goldie, because the colors just looked completely opposite.
Yeah. Interesting fun fact here. Apparently R3S6, the colors are actually based off the Pittsburgh Steelers of
There's Dave referencing
of Dave Filoni's hometown.
Pittsburgh.
Dave Filoni's from Pittsburgh, and I think it's weird that Dave Filoni would make a sports team that he ostensibly would want to root for be this Tratorius droid. Maybe this episode came. Maybe the Steelers.
Let him down.
Maybe they lost. Maybe they lost the Super Bowl that year
By
or
the way,
something. Who knows?
If you guys
I'm not a
haven't
football
seen,
fan, so I don't know.
check out the Chef Show. At
Oh my god, it's so good.
Lucasfilm. They did an episode with Lucasfilm. It's Jon Favreau and David Chang. And they had
Oh, that sounds amazing.
They had on Dave Filoni for an episode, and Dave Filoni talked about Pittsburgh in that episode, and being a big hockey fan.
Just watch like all of the Chef Show. It's so good. It's one of our favorites.
I just watched the one with Robert
amazing.
Rodriguez after that episode of Mandalorian.
Nice.
How has this not come on my radar? This sounds
I
amazing.
don't know. So it's based off of a movie that Jon Favreau was in, and I think possibly directed. I can't remember. So you can watch Chef, which is also a really good movie, and then the Chef Show kind of like runs with the idea there where like Favreau was actually learning how to cook in professional kitchens during the course of the film being made, and he just kind of like drives around and goes all over the country and like learns how to cook awesome meals with people, and they talk about life and they talk about cool stuff. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I definitely
I'm just promoting the show. I promise I'm not getting paid.
R2 versus R3. I'm sorry. I might have just thought in my head, Cora Ratama. It's the weirdest thing, because I feel like it's supposed to be this epic duel between the good droid and the bad droid, but it's just really silly. It's goofy.
But then I don't understand. It's goofy, but then R2 brutally murders R3.
Like he got on Chopper's level.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I wrote in my notes, it's over R3. I have the high ground. It did feel like a mashup of Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan from Phantom Menace and Obi-Wan versus Vader in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Except for much sillier.
But I also really like, and I hesitate to call it this, but like the duel between Grievous and Ahsoka, I feel like it really shows, it gives Grievous a little bit more of that creep factor I feel like he's supposed to have, and also shows a lot of Ahsoka's overconfidence, like just seeing how she feels like she can actually take on Grievous, but then seeing how easily like he knocks her lightsaber away and breaks her comm and like actually teaches this Padawan a lesson.
Yeah, and he had lightsabers, not just a staff made out of Beskar. Oh, sorry, never mind, wrong episode, wrong series.
Oh.
That'll come out next episode, but anyway. Yeah.
I think that Ahsoka, for me at least, I think Ahsoka was kind of the star of this episode, though. And I thought that she really, I really liked how she stepped up.
And of course, because she's the star, she has to escape through an air vent.
Yep, true. But it was kind of one-sided, but I really, really liked the Ahsoka Grievous lightsaber duel that we got.
Yeah.
I thought it was the most so far at least, it was definitely the most fluently choreographed. I thought that the size difference, almost a bit of a David Goliath situation,
Yeah.
was really they kind of took advantage of that and used some really interesting maneuvers that I hadn't seen before. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I felt like it had some urgency and sense of danger that had been missing
Yeah.
from this arc. Like it really felt you felt the tension. It felt like there were stakes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just I don't want to fanboy too much.
That was the only moment.
Yeah, I don't want to fanboy too much, but just knowing what Ahsoka becomes and all the amazing stuff she does, that was just like I think of in The Force Awakens when we hear the whispering, "Rey, these are your first steps." I kind of think of that for Ahsoka. And so I feel like I'm cheering internally the whole time during that duel. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the start of
you've taken your first step into a larger
amazing awesomeness.
I was just thinking through that episode, Ahsoka is getting attached to Goldie, but then Ahsoka 30 years later warns Din Djarin against detachment. That's just my it's crazy seeing how far that character has come.
It really is, and it's very. I feel like her arc is a really good representation of how walking in the light is a choice.
Yeah,
like she really, her whole life story drives that point home.
Yeah, she's so committed to that.
It's time for everyone's favorite part of Star Wars in the Galaxy. Jake, are we ready?
1/4 portion.
Today is Star Wars Opinions, the segment where we ask each other 2 Star Wars opinionated questions. And Nessa will be asking you as well. So, Jacob, do you have your first question? Or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Sure. All right. Nessa, I will ask you first since you're the guest. If you could create a canon Star Wars passion project of your choice, money, resources, no object. It could be a movie, a TV show, a book, a comic, or anything, and you have complete creative control. What would it be, and why?
Interesting question.
This is a good one. Okay, so because obviously I think I've made it a little clear that I'm a huge clone nerd.
You don't say.
I would love. I know, right? I would love to headline a From a Certain Point of View, specifically clone focus.
I would read that. I'm a huge fan of anthology projects, so yeah.
Yes. Yep. I'm actually that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. There's so much variety in the even in the experiences of the clones.
And like there are so many stories that are hinted at with the clones that I would love to expand on. Like I know I've kind of given you guys some hints at some of my favorites. Obviously I love Cody, I love Wolf, but my number 1 clone is Kix.
Yeah.
And do you guys know anything about Kix?
Is he not the medical clone from the Ambara arc?
First.
He is.
And he's also the guy who got trapped in carbonite for like 50 years, right?
Yeah, he's alive in the sequels. He's alive in the sequels.
Oh my gosh.
He is there when they go to Maz's cantina. Yeah. He's not on screen, but he's with the Crimson Corsair.
He was this close to being in Resistance, like this close. Yeah.
So like that's a story that I want to tell the entirety of. Like that is a dream.
Please. Yeah.
Like what happens when I don't know exactly when he got frozen, but what happens when you miss so many historical events?
Right? Like they don't get into it very much. There's literally just like a kid's book that talks about him being picked up by the Crimson Corsair because he obviously he finds out about the inhibitor chips. And Dooku puts out the word for Kix to be captured. Kix is captured, he's put in stasis, and then the ship that's carrying him malfunctions, and the droid that's flying it is like, okay, we'll just crash land because what's on the ship is too dangerous for anybody to find out about. And he just stays there in stasis.
Oh my gosh.
Decades.
That thing, I know, it's incredible.
That is such a cool premise. I would really love to see it.
I would love to just like expand on that. Yeah, that would be a dream.
Yeah. I know what I'm gonna go with for this one. Neither of you guys are gonna be remotely surprised. I've talked about this on In a Galaxy before too. It's a series about the creation and development of the Final Order on Exegol. It's about how they did what they did, the creepiness. Remember those creepy scenes at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker? Love, hate the Rise of Skywalker. I think like those scenes at the beginning with Palpatine coming back to life again, regardless of whether you thought that was a good story decision or not, those scenes were
Cinematography,
creepy.
yeah.
They were great.
Yeah.
I'd love a series set on Exegol, Final Order development, answer a lot of the questions, be the Clone Wars to the sequel trilogy, fix up a lot of the patches that it has. And again, I love the sequel trilogy. And then, of course, starring the elegant Ochi of Bestoon. He would be
Ochi the elegant.
That's the first time I've used that to describe him, but here we are. But anyway, yeah, he would be star Ochi of Bestoon in carrying out missions for the Emperor. And yeah, it'd be great. I also think we would see Rey's parents. That's the other thing, Rey's parents. We need to see Rey's parents.
Yeah.
I think that would be amazing because it would probably, I mean, we don't know how it's going to pan out, but so far from what we know of The Mandalorian, there's kind of this undercurrent, kind of the big mystery is, what are they doing with this force-based research? They've referred to midichlorians, or at least M-count. Yeah. And when we see this lab, we see the client is in on it. We see Gideon is clearly in on this. They want Baby Yoda. So I think somehow bringing that back and connecting that in with Emperor Palpatine and his resurrection,
it makes
I think
sense
that would be really
too.
cool.
The doctor, I am completely blanking
Pershing.
on his
Dr.
name.
Pershing. Please excuse his
Is
lack
that
of
you-
decorum. Sorry, that's my excuse to do Werner Herzog.
I love it. Isn't
I'm so
he wearing the Camino symbol?
Yeah, he is.
He is?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's on his shoulder.
Plot twist? What? First I've heard of this. That's amazing. Wow. So many possibilities. So many possibilities.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, it's exciting.
Yeah. There are, I was just thinking, there's 5 Star Wars impressions that I love doing. Unkar Plot's one of them. The Client's definitely another one. Because he has such great lines. Can I offer you a libation for the closing of our show?
Gravitas.
Yeah,
I know.
so funny.
I'm so sad that they killed him off.
Yeah,
I thought
right?
He was so he just had so much gravitas.
Yeah.
He was a character. Yeah.
Let's talk about Mandalorian, because of my first question, if you could bring one pre-existing character to make the jump to the Mandalorian, who is it?
One pre-existing character to make the jump to the Mandalorian. Did I hear you right?
Yeah.
The jump, okay.
I can start this off if you guys want.
All right, yeah, sure.
I was going to say Ochi before I pitched the Final Order thing, so I'm going to think of something different. I don't know how you do this. Maybe in The Mandalorian, probably, I know there's a rumored show about Ahsoka going on. If you have a rumored Ahsoka show, do a flashback to Mortis, because I want to see my live-action ones. The father, the son, the daughter, live-action, let's do this. I guess this is not Mando, technically, but it could be, if she had a flashback to Mortis. Do it.
Do it.
Get Sam Witwer back. I know he'd love to be in The Mandalorian. Get him back as a son.
Oh, God, yes, he would.
Yeah, that's my choice.
Oh, I'm trying to think.
Son, father, and daughter.
Nessa, who would you pick?
Okay, so I will admit straight off the bat that I'm not good with timelines, but I would love to see Jason Syndulla.
It could happen.
Oh,
it could happen.
Yeah.
Depending on when the epilogue is, it could happen.
Yeah. I would love to see that.
And that would mean also probably a live action Hera, and I know Vanessa Marshall would love to do it. Personally,
for my answer, I'm just gonna say any character from Rebels. Personally, I love Rebels. I have a soft spot for it.
Oh yes, he does.
I watched it all as it came out. It's one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars material. So I think seeing any character from Rebels would be absolutely amazing, especially if they were played by the voice actor.
Yeah.
I hope it's Chopper.
Except for maybe Ezra. Except for maybe Ezra.
Yeah, maybe Ezra.
I know Rahul Kohli wants it. Give it to him.
Yeah, I mean Sabine.
Please. Oh my God, Sabine would be
Hera,
amazing.
they could both
Tia
I don't know.
Sircar,
I would love to see Sabine
Vanessa Marshall.
come back, like, add another element into this, like, the different fractions of the Mandalorians.
If you want to do a
Yeah.
Sorry,
flashback,
did I
you
say
can get
fractions?
Freddie Prinze.
Oh, Kanan. No. Oh, man. Oh, it hurts. Just
It
thinking about
hurts.
Kanan's fate. It
It
hurts. But,
hurts.
yeah.
I have a friend
Mentioning Kanan would be amazing.
Jacob, go for your second question, I believe we're on.
All right. So this one's kind of a two-part question. You can pick which one you want to answer. You can answer both. So, Nessa, what is one Star Wars character that everyone loves that you can't stand or that you don't get the hype about? Or conversely, what is one Star Wars character that everyone just
Hates.
rags on and everyone
That you
doesn't give the
love.
time of day, but that you have a soft spot for or that you like?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this moment, I'm really glad that I don't use my Twitter very often because I feel like this might get me in trouble. I don't care about Grogu. I want to say I like him when I'm watching the show, but the proliferation of Grogu merchandise and such it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can I just like I want one action figure of Din.
Yeah.
Like, and I know they're out there, but it's kind of when
Yeah.
I go to Target and I'm looking for my Star Wars stuff, it's all Grogu.
It's just Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda, child,
Everywhere.
child, child, Grogu, Grogu,
Let's
everything,
do this.
all the time.
Yes.
Let's cash in on
Okay.
that volume money that we spent on that. Well, hate that everyone loves is an easy one for me. Darth Maul.
You hit, yeah. I know
couldn't
you.
care less. I hate him. I've always hated him, and I will always hate him. Even after the Clone Wars, even after Rebels. And by the way, I know this one. I'm not sure how unpopular this is, but a character that I love that everyone hates. This is gonna sound weird, but I'll explain this. My answer is Rey Skywalker. That scene.
That's fair.
That scene at the end. I know quite a few people hate that scene. I can't get enough of that scene. I love Rey proclaiming herself a Skywalker. It was exactly what I wanted at the end of the sequel trilogy, and that's my character that I love that everyone seems to hate.
I respect that. I don't like it,
I don't
don't
agree
agree
with
with it,
but I accept
but
it.
I'll accept it.
Yep.
I realize, Nessa, we didn't give the opportunity to answer the other half of the question. Would you like to?
I'm trying to think if there's any characters that like I love that nobody really cares about. I mean, I guess the best one would probably be Cody.
Yeah.
But
Come on, Cody. The time has come.
but yeah, I can't really think of anybody else.
I don't know. I think you may be right. I think Cody doesn't, like, for the amount of airtime he gets in the Clone Wars, it feels like he doesn't get a lot of love compared to Rex.
Who's the better character in Galaxy of Heroes? I just started playing Galaxy of Heroes again after like a 4-month break. Who's the better character? Rex by like 2 miles.
It's true.
Not an accident.
I love Cody, but I haven't even bothered like leveling him up. He's just kind of sitting in my character list in Galaxy of Heroes.
I didn't know you played Galaxy of Heroes.
Oh yeah.
When did you start playing?
Me?
Yeah.
I actually started playing several years ago. I'm lucky enough to actually own the username Bo-Katan.
Oh my
Wow.
god.
Yeah.
I bet that's in hot
And
demand
then-
right now.
Oh, I'm sure it is, but it's mine. But yeah, like I played for a really long time and then I got back out of it, and I think maybe obviously like quarantine gives us all kinds of opportunities. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna download it again and see what's going on, and now I'm back full swing.
Yeah, I'm back.
Nice. Yeah, I played Galaxy of Heroes. I remember playing it with Eli. Yeah, you remember this, right? We were playing it on launch day, I think.
We
maybe,
did, yeah.
right?
We were like, oh my god, look at this cool new Star Wars game. We both quit for quite a long time. I got back about 10 days ago because I saw there were some 5th anniversary rewards that I could not.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
then I ended up getting Darth Revan, so,
Oh, nice.
yeah. After
Congrats.
Yeah, now you can never leave.
and after crazy grinding, so yeah.
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 Anyway,
I remember being very into that game around the time that the Phoenix Squadron and Thrawn came out. I think that
were the
was the
days.
peak of the game for me,
those were the days.
for my experience of the game. May I be permitted to answer
Oh,
my own
absolutely.
question,
Sorry.
perhaps?
Totally forgot.
I just realized I want to say, so for one character that everyone loves and I can't stand, I realized that because you're, I'll try to be polite about this because I'm realizing that we have someone whose username is Bo-Katan. I know
Yeah.
I can't.
Comes.
I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can. I can't stand Bo-Katan. I can't stand her. I don't know what it is. I get that a lot of people like her. I think she's an awesome. She's a badass. She's cool, but it just irritates me how she seems to be kind of being coded as a hero when she seems to have just done a whole bunch of
really terrible things.
Really terrible things that hasn't been remediated, and she hasn't changed basically. It would be one thing if she's like, I'm sorry, but she's just kind of like, big deal.
I love that she gets mad about what Maul does, but she helped him.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of why I like her, because she is very flawed, and you don't get to see flawed characters like that very often.
Yeah, she's very flawed.
There's this great line from that episode, which is definitely a she's not a hero line, but I just love. So just put some tea on. We'll be up there eventually. It was so perfectly Bo-Katan.
That was pretty funny. That was a good.
It was like the I like firsts, good or bad. They're both memorable. From Ahsoka, and that redacted line from that redacted character in The Mandalorian that we can't discuss.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
I think here's the thing. I want to like Bo-Katan, but I feel like the way that people are viewing her now, where they're sort of, for lack of a better word, I see some people standing her, and I see her kind of being positioned as a hero. It just kind of irritates me because it's like, wait a minute, what about all these things? And also,
it's like, y'all don't realize what she's done.
I that's the thing. I feel like I don't want to gatekeep, but I do think that some people maybe are maybe don't understand her backstory, or maybe don't know her backstory, and that's okay. It just irritates me personally.
Do you have one for the other category, Jacob, or Nessa, actually?
I'm going to say Ezra Bridger from Rebels, because everyone says he's whiny, and he is whiny, in the early seasons especially. But I think that the way that he kind of grows, and we see that become actually not just an annoying character trait, but we see his kind of brattiness and his teenage angst kind of played out in Steps into Shadow, where he's fighting with Kanan about the holocron. I think that's interesting, and I think that a lot of people don't really give him a chance. And they always see him as the kind of sassy Aladdin that he is in a Spark of Rebellion, and they don't let him
growth.
They don't let him grow. So I don't know. I think Ezra, he's not perfect. As a person in Star Wars, or as a character that is being portrayed, he's not perfect. But I think he gets a little too much. He gets a little too much flack.
What character in Star Wars do we need a better or more enriched backstory for?
Ooh,
I have
Deepa Billaba.
Deepa Billaba.
Bingo.
I'm going to shout out
totally
Connor Sikitty on Twitter right now. He's one of the hosts of the Nerd Academy podcast. And his Twitter name right now is Deepa Billaba is my Star Wars mother. So
Yeah.
Aww.
I think we follow each other, yeah.
Yeah. Great guy. Yeah, so Deepa Billaba, good choice. Jake, do you have one? Because I have one.
I don't know. I mean, Nessa, before we go on, do you want to elaborate on that, or?
So, I love her. I can't even word. I'm currently reading Shatterpoint. I don't know if that's an EU book that either of you have read.
I know about it, but I
haven't heard of it, but it's on my list.
Yeah. So it is. It really explores I'm trying to piece things together. In the Kanan comic, you see how Kanan and Depa meet, and how she takes him on as her Padawan and all of this, and there's all these hints about how something that went down with her, that she lost almost all of her troops, and she faced Grievous, and this is obviously an EU version of that, where you see Mace actually going to rescue her from the dark side, to put it in very, very simple terms. And the book itself is astounding. Like, I really love the writing. It's so well done. And it's very dark and creepy. And I love seeing creepy stuff in Star Wars.
It's Matthew Stover who wrote the Revenge of the Sith book that everyone loves to death.
Yes. Yep. It's so beautifully written. But obviously, like, now it's Legends. I feel like we need more for her. And because who she is as a person, obviously, is going to be incredibly influential on who Kanan is as a person.
Yeah.
And, you know, we get a little bit of it in the comics, but obviously not everybody reads the comics. And I would just love to see a little bit more about, like, her story, how she became a Jedi, what she does, because she's a diplomat, and we don't see very many, like, Jedi diplomats.
So much of what Cal Kestis was in Fallen Order was based on T'Pol, and if we follow that same logic, which we should, both were Order 66 survivors of masters who died for them.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
but yeah,
I got one. Jacob, you wanna do yours?
Maybe you should go ahead because I'm struggling to come up with something new.
Mother Talzin.
That's a good pick.
This is probably bolstered by reading the excellent short story by a certain Ian Convery in the Clone Wars anthology book. If you don't know, for people who don't know, she is also married to Dave Filoni. And she wrote a great story called Bug about, like, basically a good Night Sister and her daughter and how they intersected with Talzin and what went on with that. And after that, after the Clone Wars, I want a Talzin backstory. This is somebody that Darth Sidious was afraid of. Darth Sidious. What'd she do to deserve that?
I would love that. I love the Night Sisters. So basically anything, any material, any media that comes out with them, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I want to see more Talzin.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting. I didn't even think of that, but yeah. Talzin, totally. That sounds like a great choice. I think, oh gosh, for my pick, you know, I'm gonna loop it back around. I'm gonna say we need a Plo Koon backstory. I would love to see what happens with Plo Koon, because how he clearly has a very different approach from a lot of the senior Jedi and how they deal with clones. He's not necessarily attached. He doesn't have these attachments in the way that Anakin does.
Compassionate. But
he's more compassionate, and the perfect example of this is when one of the clones says, "We're just clones. We're meant to be expendable," and he says, "Not to me." Like, how did he get to be like that? How did he get to be different?
Talking about that a couple episodes back with Jared from the Nerd Academy podcast. So carry on, though.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. I did this all day.
I know Eli's good at this stuff. But you know, Nessa, in the same way that you said we need to see more of Balaba to understand how Kanan develops, I think what if we need to see more of Ahsoka, or we need to see more of Plo Koon to see how Ahsoka develops. I think it's a bit of a reach, but because he's not her master, but he clearly is a very important mentor figure to her.
If I remember correctly, I may again be misinterpreting things. I have so much like random stuff in my brain, and occasionally it ends up being something from a fanfic that I read. But if I remember correctly, Plo Koon actually wanted to take Ahsoka as his Padawan, and they wouldn't let him because he was already attached to her.
Maybe that doesn't ring a bell to me.
Maybe that sounds right. That sounds.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't ring a bell, but that sounds very plausible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't a matter of him being refused, but it was just something they were kind of like, maybe we shouldn't let this happen.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, for a species that sees things so black and white as we have heard about Keldor, it's ironic that most of the Jedi Council sees things as more black and white than Plo Koon does.
Yeah.
You know, I think Plo Koon, I feel like it's kind of the middle between like the Qui-Gon extreme and the Windu extreme. Just
I was going to mention that like his approach feels very Qui-Gon.
Yeah. He was a good friend of Qui-Gon. He wanted Qui-Gon to join the council. We know this.
Yeah.
But Qui-Gon didn't really want any of the council's...
He's too much of a hippie for that.
Qui-Gon didn't want any of the council's shit, so...
Absolutely.
Let's get into our speed round questions. Okay. Who is your favorite Star Wars character?
Padme Amidala.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit, or?
Yeah. like I said, I mean, at the very beginning of all of this, like Padme was the reason I really like fell in love with Star Wars, mostly because I fell in love with her. And she's just always been this kind of inspiration in that she never compromises herself except to grow. So, and I've always liked that about her, and that like she's always willing to recognize her own mistakes, her own faults, her own issues, and then use the strength she gains to help others.
Nessa, what is your favorite trilogy?
Prequels.
Yeah, those
I
are the
love
ones
the
you.
prequels.
So you saw the prequel. So you're of the era where you saw the prequels in the theaters.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. So
nice.
I saw the first two in theaters. I don't remember seeing the third one, but yeah, like it's, and I will say, when I say that the prequels are my favorite, usually what I'm saying is, I saw a tweet recently about how the Clone Wars is the firmware patch.
Yeah, I saw that tweet too.
And that's what I mean. Like the prequel era specifically is my favorite.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. After 4 guests on, the prequel trilogy is our favorite trilogy.
Oh,
2 to 1 to 1.
So 2 to 1 to 1. Wow. All right.
It was actually your fellow Project Stardust colleague who was the prequel.
Hey.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If you don't have this like down, which I completely understand if you don't, you can just tell us what your favorite Star Wars movie is. But if you do have it down, tell us what your Star Wars movie ranking is.
All of them?
All the theatrical ones.
Or your top 5
or
if you
your
want.
Top 5.
Or your favorite.
Yeah. Favorite top 5 ranking.
It would be Rogue One, Attack of the Clones. From
bottom to top?
Other direction. Rogue One's my number 1.
Oh wow, interesting.
Shoot.
More power to you. I've never heard that before. I'm here for it.
I don't know why, but I love it. I absolutely love it.
I'm embarrassed to say those are my bottom 2, but okay.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, so 1 is Rogue One, 2 is Attack of the Clones, 3 would be Revenge of the Sith, 4 would be A New Hope, and 5 would be Return of the Jedi.
Hey, Return of the Jedi, I love. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, Jacob.
All right. Oh, sorry, your cursor's in front of it. What is your favorite piece of Star Wars media? Could be anything. Then that's not a movie that people are missing out on.
Fallen Order. Absolutely.
The video game?
Yeah, the video game. Yep. So, first caveat, I've never actually played it myself, but I've watched my wife play it 4 times.
That's
commitment. Yeah. That's commitment right there.
Yep. And it is seriously mind-blowing in terms of like the character development you experience over the course of the game, the worlds that they explore, the stories that they tell you, and just I always love stories that tell you about the aftermath of Order 66, whether it's a Jedi, a clone, or a civilian, or whatever.
It's a good story. I've played it myself. I find that
it's so good.
Fallen Order is the Rebels of Star Wars video games. It has that very passionate fan base. They cover a lot of the same things too. And I guess I'm going to say this about both of them, because I have the same opinion about both of them, which is that I love both of them. Both of them have great things in it. I will say I'm not as ardent of a fan of Rebels and Fallen Order as some people are. As I'm not as ardent of a fan as you or Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained is. I'm not as ardent of a Rebels fan as Jacob or Meg Dowell herself or Laura Kelly or any of these people are of Rebels, but I appreciate both. But yeah, Fallen Order, very good pick. Who is your favorite Star Wars background character? I can't imagine why we put this in, but okay.
I always blank on her name, but in the sequel trilogy, when they're in Maz's cantina, the woman who gets up and sends the message
to the First Order.
Yes.
Yeah, I love her name. Her name is the best thing ever. Bazine Natal.
Yes, I love her.
Bazine Natal.
Yeah, great name. Good character too.
Yeah, I haven't thought about her or that scene in ages, but yeah. I want to know more about her for sure.
There's a short story.
Okay.
Right?
There is, yeah.
What do you think is the coolest Star Wars species.
Togruta. I
Togruta.
love Togruta.
Me too, if I could remember that they're not Twi'leks. We had a question in a trivia contest, and I said, Togruta. I said Ahsoka Tano was a Twi'lek by accident. That's gonna haunt me forever.
It was actually really so like I mentioned earlier, we have a Slack that we use for Project Stardust, and we talk all the time, and it's one of those really cool things where we can kind of see that everybody has very niche interests in Star Wars, and we all know really cool different things. And I actually had somebody on the team ask about the difference between Twi'lek and Togruta, and I was like, I am here for this. I know way too much about Togruta. So I got to give like a Togruta lesson.
That's awesome.
Great species, both of them.
I heard that the Togruta have that their horns are hollow, and somehow that gives them better balance, I think. So they're more acrobatic.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
so
I just thought that was pretty cool.
Their horns are actually their ears. So they don't have ears that we can see. You know, like they don't have human-esque ears. They don't have the ear cones that the Twi'leks have. But yeah, so like their horns function as their ears, and they actually see movement. It's very cool.
They see movement. Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
You know, like,
Definitely
you know,
have to look into that.
Toph from Avatar? Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is your preferred Star Wars viewing order?
Oh boy, that is a good question. I usually do chronological order.
Interesting.
So, yep.
1, 2, 3,
I like
4,
to
5,
see
6, 7, 8, 9.
Yep. And then I put in the movies that, you know, like I put in Rogue One between, you know, like ahead of A New Hope and all of that. So.
Rogue One, or as I call it, episode 3.999999.
Yeah.
3.999.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Chick.
All right. What Star Wars planet would you go to for a vacation?
Naboo, I think. Naboo or Coruscant, for two very different reasons. Naboo seems incredibly beautiful, and I feel like it'd be very relaxing, but I have recently discovered that I'm the kind of person who is not afraid of New York City, despite being from a very small town. So I feel like I would really love Coruscant, and just seeing, I mean, like, it's such a cool concept, this city that's built on a city that's built on a city that's built on a city. And I mean, like, I was looking through one of the reference books the other day, and like there are entire skyscrapers on Coruscant that hold 4 million people, like apartment buildings for 4 million people.
Yeah,
and that just sounds so cool to me.
I'm watching the Phantom. I'm doing a trivia watch of the Phantom Menace right now. I just got off of Coruscant, so
yeah,
I've been in the Coruscant mode. What is the coolest weird Star Wars viewing order?
Like a non-standard
not
order.
Chronological,
like the machete order.
No, not machete.
Ooh.
Not machete. No.
Not machete. Not machete, not chronological, not release. Anything else. If you don't have any, that's fine too.
As I say, I can't say I've seen one, but I can kind of imagine almost watching Star Wars as though the sequel trilogy is the current story and you watch the other ones as a myth.
Oh my!
So you would...
Oh my god. This is like... Jacob, are you picking up on what I'm picking on?
I'm not.
The last two guests we had on, when we asked them this question, said the exact same thing. This is our third time in a row having guests on. They're like, okay, so if you start with the sequel trilogy, it's crazy. That's nuts.
And I feel like you would go in almost completely reverse order. So like you would hear you would hear the story of the original trilogy first, and then it would be like, oh, well, if you to understand this, you need to hear this story too,
and then
you would hear the prequel trilogy.
Back. Yeah.
Yep.
Lockwood order. There, we did an episode on viewing orders. 7, 4, 5, 6, 8, 1, 2, 3, 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's actually kind of an interesting order because, although I don't agree with the direction that they took it, arguably, the Jedi are a main theme of Episode 8. kind of thinking about
Yeah.
what are the
And,
Jedi,
like,
what's their
also,
legacy, and then we go back.
It is on Twitter,
And we see
proclaimed this
the
prequel
Jedi.
trilogy as masterpieces, and Last Jedi was clearly inspired by the prequels in a lot of themes, so I think it works there too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating.
Okay, Jacob.
Okay, if you lived in the Star Wars universe, what would you want your job to be? What would your occupation be?
Okay, so I always do end up feeling really attached to the Senate. I like politics. I like talking, which I know is a weird thing to say. But I do think I would end up ultimately becoming a senator.
Oh no, I'm not much for
Nice.
politics. Okay.
I'm not brave enough for politics.
I'm not brave enough for politics. Okay.
That's interesting.
Here's another question for you. One of my favorite quotes describing the behind-the-scenes process of Star Wars, and yes, I'm bringing this up yet again. I'm sorry, Jacob. It's gonna be a thing. It's like you and the Jedi losing their way. You know, it's like poetry. You know, they rhyme. Every stanza sort of rhymes with the last. Hopefully, it'll work. What is your favorite example of that in any Star Wars anything?
That is a good question. I'm gonna kind of like pull some threads, and kind of reference back to the article that I mentioned at the beginning the one that I said that I edited, where Patty, one of my fellow writers, talked about the similar stanzas between the story of Anakin and the story of Rey. And I feel like that is a really interesting kind of poetry there, and that
we'll
you
link
see
that in the description, of course, so you can check it out.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It's such a good article. I loved reading that. And, you know, just kind of seeing the repeated, I almost want to say chorus of the Chosen One, and seeing how it changes as the story or the song goes on. So I feel like that would be my thing, if that makes sense.
If you could take one item or force power from the Star Wars universe and have that in the real world, what would it be and why?
I think... Oh, I know. Except now I'm kind of forgetting the words. Hal's ability, which I know that there's, I think Kinlan Voss can also do it. The psychometry.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that would be what I would want. Yeah.
Touch an item, immediately see its history.
I've always loved that idea.
Can't you, doesn't, Quinlan Voss does that, during the Nal Hutta arc in the Clone Wars.
He does.
Went for Zero.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do know what you're talking about.
And I know that there's a story. I don't know if it's a short story or a full book.
Actually, Rey does it.
Rey does do it
with Ochi's dagger. Actually, because we always got our connected deck. It's a thing. Yeah. What are you
6 degrees of Ochi.
We actually do have a game. We should just do 6 Degrees of Ochi instead of 6 Degrees of Star Wars. Star Wars is overrated. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Oh, there is another. A Force sensitive. I don't think he's a Jedi, but they talk about him having the psychometry ability.
Actually, I think I know what you're talking about. It's a book called Force Collector.
Yeah.
I read it. It was okay.
But yeah, so I think those are the only 3 known Force sensitives who have the ability, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. We had In a Galaxy she's kind of become our mascot at this point. I want her to be our mascot anyway. She's a bounty hunter who in episode 2 in Attack of the Clones tries to attack Padme by trying to blow her ship. She hit the ship, but they used a decoy. She sends poisonous
changeling.
Yeah. What's her name?
Sam Wessel.
Vindication. Okay. Devore, you're wrong.
We have a little bit of an ongoing, I don't know, controversy, I guess, about how to pronounce her name.
Every single person I've asked, besides Devore from the incredible Star Wars podcast, The Large View of the Force, has said Wessel. He is the.
I mean, to be fair, he did have a good reason.
Yeah, he heard it all his
That's
life
how he first heard it on a video game.
But yeah,
Wessel.
yeah. My thing is, I kind of use it. I was looking at my notes there was this thing about Bothawui earlier in the episode. I'm like, they say Bothawai in the episode. I'm like, how do you pronounce it? Bothawui or Bothawai? Maybe it's just Wazelle. I just pop it in there whenever I feel like it.
Now it's in the lexicon.
Yeah. I do it all over the place too. It's kind of the thing. Yeah. Other than that, where can we find you, Nessa? Where can we plug yourself right now?
So you mostly can find me on Instagram at @girlybruiser, and I am on Twitter, and I will be totally honest, I use it so little that I forget my own handle. So...
I think I got it for you. At the Witchness. Right?
At the Witchness. Yep. The Witchness. So.
Yeah. Oh,
I
that
just
makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Of course, you can find us at In a Galaxy Pod on Twitter. You can find us Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Apple Podcasts. Anywhere you find your podcast, that's where we're going to be. We're on YouTube too, Star Wars in a Galaxy. We're actually now on Instagram ourselves. Star Wars in a Galaxy, no spaces, no anything. We probably won't use it that much because I don't really I'm not really great at Instagram, and I don't think Jacob is that interested either. But anyway, so that's going to be it for this episode. Next episode is an episode we've already recorded. We're going to be talking about Bombad Jedi, Cloak of Darkness, and Lair of Grievous. That'll be fun. And yeah, I guess in the meantime, may the Force be with you. Always.